Good evening, nerds. It's July 1st, Monday. I'm very tired. I want to sleep for a month. Not entirely related to this challenge. Yeah, it was a Monday. Let's just say that. It was a Monday. But I also made the idiotic decision to stay up until 1 in the morning finishing Apostles of Mercy. So technically I didn't read the 30 books in 30 days. But I did. Because even though I didn't finish it on the 30th, I did read other books that weren't in the 30 days. So I feel like that makes up for it. Anyway, it's my game. It's my rules. I say if I won, and I fucking won. Okay? So I'm very tired. It's the moral of the story. And people kept wanting things from me at work today, and I was so cranky. And my coworker, Marcia, who's 80 years old, she just turned to me and she goes, "You okay, honey? You okay?" And then later on in the day, she goes, "I know you're in a bad mood, so I'll take some of these calls." I was like, fuck, am I that obvious? I've got the 80-year-old, like, walking on eggshells. What we're gonna do right now is just finish up my challenge. So I have 9 books to talk about today. I'm gonna try and be more brief than I was last time, because last time I didn't have very much to talk about, and this time I do. What's it telling me? Somebody bought some stuff from me off Pango. Would you go away, please? Thank you. So let's talk about books. I have some surprises in a bad way that I was really like sure that I was gonna like, and I did not like them. And then a surprise or two the other direction. And then some that were not surprises at all. I pretty much knew exactly how I was gonna feel about them. So, okay, let's go. People who love this next book, I'm very sorry in advance. Please skip ahead if you don't want me to talk shit about your favorite book. And that is Daphne by Josh Malerman. So this is my first Josh Malerman book. It will probably be my last. Because what happened here wasn't the ideas. I liked the idea of Daphne, who is this urban legend in this town, and she appears to be stalking and killing the girls' basketball team in this high school. The main character is really this girl named Kit, but we follow other people too, mostly as they're about to be murdered. But nobody in the town talks about Daphne, and the more you think about Daphne, the more likely she is to come find you and murder you. And she was a real person, supposedly, and she was 7 feet tall and very antisocial. We learned things about Pippin, honey. I'm filming. Just come out, spit. So that's the premise. And then obviously, like, the book starts out with a sleepover and the girls are telling each other scary stories. And one of the girls, Natasha, tells the whole team about Daphne and then sets the plot in motion. And that just sounded so intriguing to me. And so many people have liked this, if not loved it. And I just thought there was no way I wasn't going to love it. And then the writing style just did nothing for me. I think I would have ended up giving this a 3-star if it hadn't been for the journal entries. So the main character, Kit, she writes in her journal. She also has severe anxiety disorder, which she's not taking medication for, which makes no sense. She has like a little pill of like Xanax or something that she's supposed to take when she feels the panic attack coming on, but that's not how you treat an anxiety disorder. She should be on an SSRI or something. Anyway, she has a journal, and in the journal, which she has named Jolly, I don't know a single teenage girl. I mean, I don't know any teenage girls, but back when I was one, why? I don't know. It just was, I didn't like that to begin with. But then, and I listened to the audiobook for most of the book. I only read like 16% of it before I switched to the audio so I could finish it in time. And it was just so irritating because she addresses the journal and calls it Jolly constantly. And the voice of this teenage girl just, it didn't ring true. In fact, it was really annoying. And those journal entries made the book drop a whole star. I just did not like them. I also think in general, though, the reason for my lackluster feelings besides the writing style is it was trying to do too much and it couldn't quite decide what kind of book it wanted to be. It didn't feel cohesive to me. And also, like, Daphne is very obviously a metaphor for anxiety, and we know that because the characters tell us. It was like, are you serious? That's not satisfying. We got to do the work ourselves. Also, like, take the Daphne as anxiety, as a metaphor for anxiety metaphor, and extrapolate it out throughout the rest of the book. What happens to the rest of the teammates doesn't make any sense. So it was so messy. The messaging was weird. I just didn't like it, okay? It's well, 2.5 stars, because I think that there is an argument to be made for some of the stuff that I just didn't like, or that I've interpreted differently, but I just didn't like it, and I'm not going to read any more Josh Malerman unless somebody makes a really good case for it. So yeah, Daphne, this was book 22. I gave it 2.5 stars rounded down. I'm not going to talk too much about this one because it was not a great experience, and I just don't want to talk about it. And that's Silent Key by Laurel Hightower, another 2-star horror. This one was straight 2 stars. Look at this cover. That is gorgeous. Like, it's so eerie. That person looks like an alien. And then the blurb compares it to Stephen King and to, what else does it compare it to? I can't remember. This is a different blurb than the one that is on Goodreads. But it's like ghosts but I didn't hate it. I didn't like it at all. I don't understand. Like, I thought this author was well liked, but her writing style was so dull. And I didn't know this had the mafia in it. Wouldn't have touched it. I didn't know that this was going to involve ghosts. Would have been cautious if so, because ghosts don't always work for me. I didn't know that it was gonna have like a weird romance. I didn't know that the main character was a cop. I didn't know a lot of stuff. And I just, mostly though, that's surface stuff that just rankled me after the fact. Mostly it was the writing style. I just thought it was so dull. And there's no storyteller. Like, if you're gonna compare something to Stephen King, you better have a storyteller in your pages. And this woman is not a storyteller. I don't know what she is, but she doesn't. And when I say storyteller, I mean like a person who overall wants you to feel like you're being told a story, like a very constructed story, not this. I just did not like it. And the kid was annoying. The dialogue with the kid and the mom was really annoying. I don't know. So also will not be reading more from Laurel Hightower. I mean, I didn't really want to read from her before this, to be fair. I was not interested in the novels that, well, they're novellas that other people have read, Crossroads, and then there's one with like a Mothman or a demon or something on the cover. Not interested in those at all. So, I mean, really, I've just learned something about myself here, which is that a pretty cover will get me. I mean, it's only $10, so it's fine. I really wanted the book to match these vibes. Somebody write me a book to match these vibes, please. Okay, thanks. Book 23, 2 stars. Okay, let's move on to Happier Pastures. Next up is the book that surprised me. So this is a book that I bought on Book Outlet, and I did it solely because of the cover. Even despite the fact that I'm not always good with satire, I'm not really good with lit fic almost ever. It takes a pretty rare author with pretty rare talent to get me to like a lit fic. And also it is translated from German. So that's always a risk because like sometimes cultural concepts don't always transfer. So anyway, this book that I'm talking about is Identity by, I don't know how to say her first name, Mithu? I should have looked it up. Sanyal. And the translator is Alta L. Price, and she did a fabulous job, by the way. This book, I did end up giving it 3.5 stars, rounded down, but I feel like that rating doesn't accurately convey my experience of reading this book. So let me tell you what this is about. First of all, let me show you this cover. That's the dude's head she cut off. There's his lifeless body. And I don't know if you can see, that's a circle of arms that she's wearing as a skirt. This is Kali, the Hindu goddess of destruction. I think it's destruction. I'll look it up. I'll put it here if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's right. I could be wrong though. Kali is very important in the book to the main character, whose name is Nivedita, and Kali is her role model and her icon, and she is half Indian and half Polish, but she lives in Germany and she was born in Germany. And so she has very conflicting feelings and thoughts about her identity. And this, by the way, identity is not like German for identity. It's the word identity with titty at the end because Nivedita also likes boobs. She is a blogger. But the main plot of this book is that Nivedita, who is like 21 or 22 at this point, has been studying with this professor of post-colonialism in Dusseldorf. I forget the name of the university. Is it in the blurb? No. And this woman is like the center of her universe. She is a force of nature. And if you've ever had a really great teacher who just blows your mind and you can't take your eyes off of them, and then like multiply that by 100, you'll know how Nivedita feels about Saraswati, which is this professor's name. And she's Indian and she teaches post-colonialism. And there's a lot about race and gender and, you know, a whole bunch of stuff. And we get a lot of her lectures in the book, and they were genuinely interesting. So, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry, this is all over the place. The big thing here is that the book opens with breaking news. Somebody has outed Saraswati as actually not being Indian. She has been passing as Indian, but she is white. And her real name was Sarah Vera Thibodeau, I think was her last name. Sarah Vera Thibodeau. And she was white. Not only was this woman a professor, a noted professor, her opinions and her presence and everything about her made her into like a sort of actual pop cultural figure, not just in Germany, but worldwide. And so the fallout when everyone finds out that she's not Indian is massive. And the internet blows up. So we follow Nivedita, who is crushed by this revelation because Saraswati helped her literally find her identity as a person and like made her feel a sense of belonging for the first time as a human being in a community. And the fact that she feels this betrayal from this person who was so central to her forming of her identity is crushing. She doesn't react like everyone else who takes to Twitter, who protests, who's angry, you know, does the Twitter thing. If you read Yellowface, it's pretty similar to that actually. She instead heads towards Saraswati to find answers. And so the whole book is them talking above, at, below each other. Nivedita is trying to get answers from this woman who clearly loves Nivedita, but in her own weird way. She's a very weird lady. But the thing I loved about the book is that it was very, like, the author just presents all these people with all of these very conflicting opinions and then leaves the opinions there for you to sort out for yourself. Yeah, so it's very thorny, very messy. Like, is it okay for a white woman to do this? If not, why? If yes, why? Are there gray areas? Is something new happening? Like, what does this mean for her study? Like, just a whole bunch of stuff. And then another cool thing about this is the author actually solicited real life Twitter reactions from real life Twitter people. So she like I didn't recognize many of the names, if any, but they're very famous pop culture or scholarship figures in Germany. And she told them the plot of the book and what was going on in this fake scandal and had them reply authentically. So their tweets are actually in the book. So that was cool. But the thing that like really brought this down for me, where otherwise it would have been a 4, maybe even a 4.5, because the ending was, it was bananas. And it kind of descends into fabulism at the end, but like in a good way. I don't know. I think I liked it. But the thing that made me lower this a whole star basically is the sex stuff. And I said this in my review on Goodreads, but there is some disturbing sex stuff that is just sort of put out there for a second and then it's gone. You're already moving on. And I'm like, wait, whoa, what? What did you just say? But the narrative's already moved on. And that happened 3 or 4 times. Like, I'm not a prude. I read sex in books. I read kinky sex in books, and it's fine. I read kinky sex in fanfic. I mean, it's not like something asexual here, but I'm not a prude. I'm very interested in sex. But the way it was written about in this book was bizarre. Like, absolutely bizarre. And it got in the way of my feelings for this character, Nivedita, because it's all her basically doing the weird stuff. Threesomes are not abnormal. That's not what I'm talking about. But she has a threesome with this dude and her cousin. And it's not like a dude having sex with 2 women. It's like they were all having sex with each other. Like that kind of weird stuff. And there was worse stuff. That's like the least worst thing that happens. Anyway, I just don't understand the point of it. Like, is this normal in Germany? I don't think it is. Some of the other stuff. Well, I just don't understand. Like, what was the point of making her think those thoughts? They were so random in such a small portion of the book, but they were so bizarre that they like overshadowed a lot of what else was going on. I don't know. If you guys, none of you have read this. What am I saying? If you've read this book, please talk to me about it. Everybody read this book and then come back and talk to me about it and tell me what you think, because I need help. Anyway, this was really interesting and I'm really glad that I read it. And I hope more people do read it, aside from the weird sex stuff. So if you like read it because I told you to read it, don't be mad at me if you're grossed out, because I warned you. 3.5 stars. This is book 24, 3.5 stars. So book 25, I was reading this book for like most of the month, and this is probably one of the best short story collections I've ever read, and that's The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson. This is the 75th anniversary edition. There are 25 short stories in here, and I think there were like 2 or 3 duds, maybe not even 3. I think it might have been 2 duds. And I liked all the other stories, and I loved some of them, and they were so weird, and they were like taking mundane stuff and making it awful and horrid. Just very creative. I don't want to talk a lot about it because there's too many stories in here. But The Lottery, which is the titular story, the one that everyone's read, I'd never read it before, is the very last story in the book. And what's great about this is that this is a true like short story collection, in the sense that it's not just short stories that this woman wrote and then shoved together with no overarching purpose. Like, these very clearly working together to tell a story about what this woman is trying to say about various themes and topics that interweave with each other throughout the book. And then when you get to The Lottery, it sort of acts as this terrible capper. And by terrible, I mean, it was great. I gave it 5 stars, but actually 2 5-star stories in here for me. The Lottery and The Flower Garden, which is the second longest story in the book. But most of them are really short. So if you want to try out Shirley Jackson, I would highly recommend this. It's the strangest horror that I've ever read. It's definitely literary horror. So if you're into that, highly recommend. Maybe even if you didn't like Haunting of Hill House, because this is pretty different to Haunting of Hill House. The short fiction just hits differently. So yeah, so I ravaged out all my different ratings, and it came out at a 3.70, which is high for me. Usually short story collections and anthologies are closer to like a 3.2, 3.3, something like that. So 3.7 is really high, and I rounded it up to 4 because overall this is stellar. And some of the stories, maybe I was just too sleepy or too not awake yet. I don't know, because I write them late at night or early in the morning. Maybe I was too dumb to make the connections. But yeah, highly recommend. 4 stars, 3.7. This is book 25, and my computer went black. Hold on, I have to wake it up. Need my cheat sheet. Yeah, 4 stars, book 25. Book 26 is a little tiny sci-fi called The Goblin Reservation by Clifford D. Simak. I say sci-fi. It's actually a sci-fantasy, which I didn't know going in, even though there's literally dwarves and goblins and orcs and a dragon and a castle on the cover. This is a very goofy sci-fi adventure story by Clifford D. Simak, who most people would know from Waystation, but even that book is like highly underread. And Clifford D. Simak is actually turning out to be my favorite classic sci-fi author. He just wrote good sci-fi, like with like good stories, not depressing, not nihilistic, not misogynistic. Like, they were, I don't know, man. Anyway, this one is about a dude who is basically transported, like in Star Trek, to a planet, and he's going there for his work. And this is a world hundreds of years in our future where they've rediscovered the little folk, like goblins and fairies and all that, and they're all real. And also there's a Neanderthal running around who's this guy's best friend because they have time travel, and they went back and took the Neanderthal out of the moment he was about to be murdered, and now he lives in the future, and his name is Alioop. And then their other best friend is a ghost. So it's this dude who gets doubled, and when he comes back, he finds that his double has been murdered because his transporter beam got split. and there were two of him, and the other one came back first and got murdered, and then he came back and found out his other self was murdered, and so his friends were like, we buried you, man, we had a funeral. And then this lady from time travel department at his university, they all get together and they're like gonna solve why was he murdered, what happened, and it involves fairies and goblins and a dragon. So I had a really good time with this. It's super short. It's like 192 pages, and it's so old. I don't know if you guys can tell how brown. No, you can't really tell. It's so brown. It's like the brownest old paperback that I've ever seen. So I have a bunch of these old Clifford D. Simak paperbacks that I've been collecting, and I can't wait to read more of them. So yeah, 4 stars I gave this. This was book 26. Book 27 was a huge surprise. Well, not huge, but it was a surprise. And that's The Mimicking of Known Successes by Malka Older. So this is a sci-fi, futuristic sci-fi, where humanity has destroyed Earth, as we often do in these sorts of stories, / maybe in real life. And they are now living on Jupiter because we also fucked up Mars, as one does. And it's actually like really cool because you don't think that there's any way that you could ever live on Mars, but these guys managed it, and the way they do it is by living on platforms that are like connected by rail all across the planet, and they're suspended over the gases. And it's a very cold place to live, but they've managed it. So the main character is a scholar whose main goal in life is to research Earth ecosystems so that when they eventually try to take back Earth and repopulate it, they get the ecosystem just right so it doesn't die out. And that's her job. But her old university flatmate / lover, Masa, well, this woman's name is Pleedy, shows up one day asking for her help in her investigation because she's an investigator, and she's investigating this guy's death who seems to have unalived himself by jumping off a platform into the center of the planet. Not a pleasant death, but she has to make sure, and because he could have been murdered or he could just be missing. All signs point to him being dead because he was in an isolated place out in the middle of nowhere and no trains came. And this is a Holmesian story, which I'm a sucker for those. So we've got like the savant who's not so great with social norms and definitely is neurodivergent. And then we've got the Watson, who in this case is Pleedy, or is it Plighty? I think it's Pleedy. I don't know. It's not a real name, so I can say however I want to. So yeah, so she's the normal person for Masa to bounce her ideas off of. And anyway, they get involved in this investigation. And it was just like such a good time, mostly because Malka Older's writing is very like, it doesn't feel like it's in the future. It feels very old fashioned, but in like a very charming, cozy way. This is like a cozy sci-fi almost. But at the same time, they're in the future with lots of weird science and rockets. And I don't know. I just really liked it. It was so cozy. And I really liked the characters, and it was would you stop? This is going to sound awful, but it was way smarter than I thought it would be. I think it's just because I've been disappointed so many times by science fiction lately, where like the premise sounds amazing, and then when you get, hi Pippin, when you get into it, it's like, you don't know how to write science fiction. You don't know how to, you know what I mean? So the fact that this was just so assured, it was just so solid. I could see myself rereading it eventually and bumping it up to 5 stars depending on where the series goes in the future. And I've already placed a hold on book 2, which came out this year. 4.5 stars for The Mimicking of Known Successes, and this was book 27. All right, home stretch. Book 28, that is The Lies of the Ajungo by Moses Ose Utomi. This is a very short novella. It is 87 pages. It's fantasy, and it's almost fable-like. It's about this boy named, what's his name? I just read it on Saturday. Tutu. How could I forget that? His name is Tutu, and he lives in the City of Lies, and the City of Lies has no water. And there are these very powerful people called the AJUNGO who made a deal with the City of Lies ages ago. We don't, because it's a fable, so we don't really ever get dates. But ages before, they made a deal with the AJUNGO, and the AJUNGO said, we will bring you water in exchange for tongues. You must cut out your tongue at the age of 13, and we will bring water for the whole city every year. But of course, they only bring enough for everyone to barely survive. And it's not an equal system, so some people just die of dehydration, and some people have more than they should. But anyway, this character apparently sometimes before their tongues are cut out, these children will go out in search of water and hopefully to save the city. So he decides he's going to do that. He's going to go out into the desert, into the forever desert, which is the name of the series because there's going to be a second book published soon. Or is it already published? Not important. And he's going to save the city. I kind of saw where this was going, but it didn't lessen the impact, and it was really well written, and I really liked the characters, and I really liked the writing, and I was very surprised. I have a hard time getting really invested in short fiction, like really invested, and I was in it right away. So his words were good words in here, good words, and I ended up giving this 4 stars. So this was book 28, a 4-star read, and I will be reading book 2, which takes place, I think, 500 years later. Good book. Okay, so that brings me to the, well, which one should I do first? I'll do Apostles of Mercy first. So this is book 29, even though I finished it last. This is book 29 by Lindsay Ellis. This is the 3rd book in the Numina series. And it's sci-fi first contact alternate history set in the early 2000s about what if aliens came to Earth and everyone found out about it. What would that look like in the modern world? And it's very heavily inspired by the War of the Worlds, but like in a very modern way. And like the plot has nothing to do with War of the Worlds. It's more the ideas. The first 2 books get progressively darker as they go, but also like there's something very human about them, and I just love her writing, and I don't know, I have a great time. This one wasn't as good as book 2. I didn't give it 5 stars. This is 4.5 rounded down, I think is what I've settled on. I haven't quite, like, you'll notice it's unrated on Goodreads right now if you're watching this close to when I've uploaded, because I'm not quite sure, because the ending like gave me an oh shit moment, but it also like was like, really, do I want that series, do I want the series to go that way? I don't know. There's like just this massive, I don't know how long the series is going to be. There's this like massive overarching conflict of, will humanity survive? And it's not because the aliens and them are going to have a war. It's very much more existential than that, and very pessimistic about humanity in some ways, but like very hopeful in others. And the central pair in this is an alien and then a human girl. I don't know. I can't say much more about it because this is book 3. But if you guys haven't checked this series out yet, I highly recommend it. And that was 4.5 stars. Book 29. Okay, now let's talk about book 30. This is the second to last book actually that I finished, but I have it last in my list. So just whatever. Let me do what I want. It's The Shadow of What Was Lost. I told you guys about this last week, about what I was currently reading. And I ended up giving this book 4 stars. But I had a really great time with it. Like, you can see that he's a really talented author who is just really in that stage of being a debut author and not having his feet under him quite yet. And that everything wasn't perfect. Like, there were areas where I felt confused, but in a bad way. Like, oh, a more assured author would have done this and that to assure me, or like see that, you know, like when you're reading a confusing fantasy story, you need to get your reader to be okay with not knowing some things, but knowing that there will be answers in the future because they can see a path. And I can't see the path quite yet. It's very confusing, like who's on what side and what are the sides even doing, like that kind of stuff. And it's also pretty derivative of other stories, which I talked about last time, like Wheel of Time and Game of Thrones. You know, there's a wall. And so it just, you know, he's grown as an author. So I just couldn't give it 5 stars. Oh, there's a spider. I found 5 spiders in my bed last night. Is that like an omen? Did a spider lay eggs in my bed? I think it's because there was a storm and there's a very small hole at the bottom of my window in the ceiling, which the landlord says is supposed to be there, but it lets bugs in. So I think maybe the spiders came in out of the rain. I don't know, but they were, and I was changing my sheets and there were just these 4 little spiders just on my bed. Did I say 4 or 5? I think it was 4. Might have been 5. There's the 5th one right there. Anyway, the spiders in my house, we have an agreement. I will leave them alone to do what their spider stuff, unless it's too big, and then I'll freak out. I will leave them alone as long as they stay out of my bed. If they come in my bed, they die. So those are dead spiders now. And that one behind the wall can stay. I'm just telling you the rules. The Shadow of What Was Lost was a good time. So this is a book about the main character. Well, it's like a sort of ensemble cast, but there's 3 main characters as of right now. DAPHNE, who is an augur, and the augurs are people who can see into the future, and they have various other powers. Like they can sometimes they can control other people's minds. Sometimes they can read people, like tell if they're lying, or even like read their minds. But anyway, the augurs were all wiped out in this huge war 15 years, 20 years, I don't know how long before. And then these things called the tenets were put in place, restricting magic users from basically being able to use magic at all. And they're basically second-class citizens now because the people fear them and have made them into the scapegoats for this conflict, which was started by this other guy who's still kicking because there's immortal people wandering around, because of course. It's too much to explain the plot. Just trust me, it's a lot. But yeah, it was good. I mean, and there was some stuff I genuinely did not see coming. You can see that he's very good at character. You can see he's very good at plotting. I just had a really good time. I immediately bought the second audiobook from Audible, which involved reactivating my Audible subscription. Hey, they have a different plan now, though, that they didn't have last time I signed up, where you can sign up for a credit every other month, and it's $8.50 a month instead of $14. So that's what I did, because I also want the second All Clear book, which was the first book I read this month, if y'all remember, and Blackout and All Clear, or that duology. That is also an Audible exclusive. So that's what I was getting at. Anyways, this book is an Audible exclusive if you want the audiobook. It's a really great audiobook. It's narrated by one of my favorite narrators who does Stormlight and Wheel of Time, Michael Kramer. So anyway, I think I should stop talking now. For those of you wondering, I never finished Waysider. I'm going to this month, but it just didn't happen. I had too many other books to read. And yeah, I think I ended up reading 36 books in total this month, but I finished my 30 book TBR that I needed to finish in order to complete my challenge. So congratulations to me, everybody. Give me an applause for doing a thing that I set myself that I knew I could do ahead of time. It was really hard though. I really did nothing but read this weekend, and I stayed up too late to do it. So I need to stack the deck. I need to stack it even better next year. Like more shorter books and more audiobooks and less chunkers. With that, I'm very proudly keeping this at under 40 minutes. If you've made it this far to the end of the video, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you wanna. I really appreciate it. I'm at 579 followers as of filming this. So still a ways to go to get to 1,000, but I appreciate all of you who have subscribed and getting me to my goals. And I promise once I get to 1,000, I'll stop asking. I just want this channel to make me some money, okay? Anyway, if you made it this far and you don't have anything to say about any of the books that I talked about, please leave me a magnifying glass. And do they have a tiger emoji or a leopard emoji? There's a caracal, which is a wild cat in the Mimicking of Known Successes. They definitely don't have a caracal emoji. So a lion, you can leave me a lion. We like lions. Yeah, anyway, thanks for humoring me in my 30 books in 30 days project. I've got different stuff coming up in July and August that hopefully will be interesting to you. Don't know what I'm going to do for my wrap up this month, because I'm basically going to be vlogging every book that I'm reading almost, because of the various projects I'm doing. I'm just rambling now, and I want to get into my pajamas. I didn't change into pajamas like I normally do when I get home from work, because I wanted to film this video not wearing pajamas. That's going to happen right now. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Okay, love you, bye.